Hi, it's Tracy from Tracy's Treasures 1967, reseller on eBay. Um, I made a video about, I was going to share my story with you guys, and I've been kind of struggling with exactly you know, what to put in there, like details and different things, and so I'm just going to kind of touch on the some of the main points in my life. I told you about how, my mom always took us to church and everything. I'm going to start with when I was 13, I was kicked out of school for skipping school, destruction of property, forgery, and breaking and entering was the other one. So that kind of gives you a glimpse into what kind of kid I was, where I was at, and everything. And then the next probably big highlight is when I was in high school. I was a junior in high school, and I was kicked out my junior year of high school. They called my parents, told them they didn't want me in their school, around their school, anywhere near their school. They didn't have time to babysit me, that I caused too much trouble, and they just didn't want me there. So, needless to say, my parents were furious. But they talked to, the school and everything, and the school told them that I would have to go before the school board in order to return my senior year or junior year, whichever may be. And I may have to, repeat my junior year and all that kind of thing. And so my parents, they talked to them and they got it worked out that I could take my exams at the end of the year, and if I passed them, that I could go on, that I could come back the next year as a senior, but if I didn't, I would have to repeat my junior year. So I passed my exams, and I went before the board, and they said I could come back as a senior and graduate as long as I maintained a B or above average, didn't get in any trouble whatsoever, kept my nose clean, and did what I was supposed to do, did what normal kids do, basically. So I agreed. I had to sign a paper saying that I would do that, and so that's what happened. I went back the next year as a senior, and I graduated when I was 17, when I was supposed to. And but during that time that I would been kicked out of school, people at church were telling their kids not to hang out with me, not to go near me because I was bad news. And I don't think that had as much impact on me as it did my mom, but I don't think it had as much impact on her because she was a true Christian, and she knew, she trusted in God, and she followed God, and not the hypocrisy of the people. But she called the pastor and had him come talk to me, and this was before, that I had gone back to high school, my senior year. This was during I was still kicked out. She called our pastor to come to our house and talk to me, and he did. And I ended up giving my life to Jesus, and I got baptized. And, like I said, through that, I finished high school. And then after high school, I got pregnant. I got married, which was a mistake, obviously. But I got a beautiful baby girl out of that. She is such a blessing. Such a blessing. She's 38 now, but truly. She was my best friend for a long time. She was my rock. Which should have been God. And it was, but it wasn't. I knew God, but I didn't know God. I trusted God, but I didn't trust God. Things, happened in my life, and I started drinking again, and a whole lot. And I ended up living with bikers and living that lifestyle and just doing things that we won't talk about. But I got to the point, I was so miserable in life, I wanted to die. I didn't want to keep living the way that I was living. And when you have the battle between the good and the evil, and for a long time I ignored it, the good, I didn't want to look at it, I didn't want to be part of it. But I tried to kill myself, and I tried to run my car into a river, which my car slid right up to the edge of the river and stopped. My car slid really bad on wet roads, and I knew that, so that's how I did it. I just hit the gas and let the car go sliding, and where it stopped was right at the edge of the river. Which I was frustrated with it at the time, and so, I gathered my belongings out of the car, opened the door, got out, walked up the road, and I was sitting in the middle of the road, and a police officer came, and he stopped, and he asked me, he said, "Ma'am, is that your car up the road?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "What happened?" I said, "The roads are wet, my car slid off the road, and I couldn't get it to start again, I couldn't get it out, so I just started walking." And he said, "How'd you get out of that car?" I said, "I just opened the door and I got out." He said, "Driver's door?" I said, "Yeah." And he looked at me and he said, How did you do that?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'll tell you this." He said, "Somebody's with you tonight, because there's no way that you could have stepped out of that car and lived, because there's nothing for you to step out on." He said, "Somebody's watching over you right now." And you would think that kind of it just did kind of jar me, actually, because that kind of led to me ended up going back to my parents' house. Of course, I was living in Frankfort, Kentucky, and they were still in Pendleton on a farm. And so I ended up going there, and they weren't home at the time. And I was sitting with a bottle of pills in one hand and a bottle of 151 rum in the other hand. And I said, "God, help me, because I can't do this anymore." I was so miserable. And as it ended up, my dad didn't want me there. He didn't want me to stay there. He didn't trust me. I was a thief. I was a liar. I was just not a good person at all, in any way, shape, or form. I was pretty low. But I ended up going to a detox center, and I detoxed, and I went to a halfway house. It was for women coming out of prison, most of them, but I had a cousin who had been in the program for many, many years, 20, 30 years, who got me into this halfway house. And we had groups all day, and, See, people think with addiction, why don't they just stop drinking? Why don't they just stop? But it's not, that's like if somebody told you, okay, no more coffee. Or if you're a Christian, okay, you can't get up and pray anymore. You're not allowed to pray anymore, ever. You can't do that. You're going to be like, well, how am I supposed to live? This is my lifeline. How am I supposed to live? And it's the same way with drinking and drugging. That's the life we know. That's what we do. That's how we live. And if you take that away, we're lost. We don't know anything else. That's all we know how to do, is drink and drug. And it's our solution to every day. And that's how we live our everyday. And if you take that away, what then? It's scary. It's really scary to an addict or an alcoholic to have that taken away. Well, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? I get up in the mornings and I take a drink. What am I supposed to do if I can't do that? So we have to learn how to live life on life's terms. And our minds are so messed up and so foggy, and our way of thinking, our perceptions, everything. To tell you a little bit about how we see things, it's like when I was married, if I usually was the last one to bed, and my husband would say, "Did you lock the door?" And I would say yes. Well, knowing that the door is locked is on his mind now. Well, he can't rest easy because he doesn't, he needs to know in his mind that the door is locked. And I tell him it's locked. But he still has a need to get up and go check for himself, That's how we work. That's just how we're built. And when he gets up to go check and make sure that the door is locked, I see that as him telling me I'm not confident enough to lock a door. Why do you have to go double check? I told you I locked the door. Well, for his peace of mind, he needs to see it locked, which is completely understandable. But in my mind, it's not. He's telling me that I'm not even smart enough to lock a door. What, you have to go make sure that I knew what I was doing? And that's how our minds work. And, it's hard to understand if your mind doesn't work that way. It really is. But we have to learn how to think in a way that is normal when we're not normal. And it's not normal for us. Normal people, it's like, you just know to do that? Like, how do you know to do that? Or how do you know to think like that? And it's something that we have to go through and learn how to do, because we don't know. And we have to learn what feelings. I had to learn. I didn't know if I was happy, if I was sad, or, I didn't know. I didn't know how to feel. I had to get a chart with feelings on it and try to relate to one of those feelings. Okay, yeah, this is how I'm feeling, I think. Because we've numbed those feelings for so long. Because we didn't want to feel them because they hurt. They're painful. Everyday life is painful. And, we're not living